Loaded wraps. You think hand wraps are just for protection? Well, think again. Some fighters have tried to turn them into weapons, and the results were brutal. Loaded wraps are when fighters add plaster, hardening agents, or extra materials to their hand wraps to make their fists hit like concrete. The most infamous case, boxing. But it's banned in MMA for the same reason. Antonio Margarito got caught with plaster-like substances in his wraps before a fight with Shane Mosley. When they cut the wraps off, officials found illegal pads that felt unnaturally hard. Margarito got banned for a year, but the damage was done. His opponent in a previous fight, Miguel Cotto, had been beaten to a pulp, and people suspected those loaded wraps were used then too. Plaster goes on dry like a powder, so it can pass initial checks. But in the fight, the plaster hardens into basically a cast. Your fists become weapons that cause permanent damage. In MMA, with those small 4-ounce gloves, loaded wraps would be devastating. One punch could shatter an orbital bone, fracture a skull, or end a life. In the UFC, wraps must be applied in front of commission officials and by the UFC cutmen. They check for suspicious materials, excessive tape, stacking layers, or anything that could harden the wrap is forbidden. The ban exists for a reason. They give an illegal advantage that can seriously injure or even kill someone. Non-padded gloves. Non-padded gloves are when fighters or their corners remove padding from the gloves to make their punches more damaging. The most horrific example is Louis Resto versus Billy Collins Jr. in 1983. Resto's trainer, Panama Louis, removed the padding from Resto's gloves. Collins didn't stand a chance. His face was destroyed. He suffered a torn iris, permanent vision loss, and his boxing career was over at 22. He died in a car crash less than a year later, and many believe the loss of his career drove him to do it. In MMA, the rules are even stricter because the gloves are smaller. UFC gloves must have at least 1 inch of padding over the knuckles. They are checked before every fight. Commission officials inspect them, feel them, and make sure nothing has been tampered with. Any modifications or attempt to remove or reduce padding results in an immediate cut from the UFC and potential criminal charges. Non-padded gloves are essentially brass knuckles. They can cause life-altering injuries, and that's why tampering with gloves is one of the most serious violations you can commit in MMA. Speedo shorts and sponsors. Now this one's a 2-for-1 because both Speedo style shorts and personal sponsor logos are banned in the UFC, but for very different reasons. The Speedo shorts ban is one of the most infamous stories in UFC history. UFC 133 in 2011, Dennis Hallman walks out to fight Brian Ebersol wearing a bright blue Speedo. A full-on swimming Speedo. Dana White immediately tweeted, "What the fuck, fighting in this will be illegal after tonight." Hallman later said he wore it because he lost a bet and thought it would be funny and embarrassing for himself. When Ebersol finished Hallman in the first round, Dana was so relieved to get those shorts off the TV screen, he gave Ebersol a $70,000 bonus specifically for ending the fight quickly. Dana also later said,
"The shorts on Dennis Hallman being a thing of not, that was disgraceful, would you say? I mean, how did you feel about that?"
I'd call it disgusting. That was disgusting. I seriously gave Ebersol the $70,000 bonus.
To make things worse, Hallman had a wardrobe malfunction during the fight, with everything exposed on camera. The unified rules explicitly banned Speedo-style shorts, and Hallman was cut from the UFC. Fighters must wear approved shorts with adequate coverage, and commissions enforce this at weigh-ins. Now, the personal sponsor ban is completely different. Before 2015, fighters could have sponsor logos all over their shorts and banner.
Going to the champion's corner. He's the challenger tonight looking to regain his belt.
Top fighters were making $50,000 to $100,000 per fight just from sponsors. Then the UFC signed an exclusive deal with Reebok in 2015, later switching to Venom, and all personal sponsors disappeared overnight. Now, fighters get paid on a UFC tenure. One of 3 fights gets you $3,500, all because the UFC wanted a more professional image. Greasing. Vaseline is legal in MMA. A little bit on the face to prevent cuts, that's totally fine, but not too much. Putting it anywhere else on your body is cheating, and therefore it's banned. Greasing is when fighters or their corners apply excessive amounts of Vaseline just to gain an unfair advantage. The most famous scandal, well, it has to be George St. Pierre versus BJ Penn. Between rounds, GSP's corner was caught on camera, rubbing his back and shoulders. Penn's corner immediately protested. The referee had to wipe GSP down. Penn lost the fight, and to this day, people debate if GSP had an unfair advantage.
I know the difference between sweat and something else. I'm not saying GSP greased, I'm just saying he was slick.
In MMA, grappling is everything. Your opponent is slippery, so submissions don't work. You can't hold them down. Controlling positions become impossible. The fighter who's been greased can slip out of chokes or defend takedowns more easily. In the UFC, only the cutman can apply Vaseline, and only to the face to reduce cuts. Anything beyond that is illegal. IV bags. After a brutal weight cut, fighters are dehydrated and desperate to rehydrate. For years, they used IV drips to recover quickly. Then, in 2015, USADA banned them. IV rehydration is when fighters inject fluids directly into their veins to rapidly recover from dehydration after weigh-ins. It was a common practice. Cut 20 pounds of water weight, step on the scale, and then immediately get an IV to rehydrate. And it worked. Fighters could cut extreme amounts of weight and still perform the day after. But USADA banned IVs over 100 milliliters in a 12-hour period. Unless, of course, it's a medical emergency. Because there's 2 reasons. First, IVs can be used to mask PEDs, meaning performance-enhancing drugs. You can dilute your blood, flushing out banned substances and making it harder for them to detect what you have taken. Secondly, the ban was meant to discourage extreme weight cutting, but in reality, fighters still cut massive amounts of weight. They just suffer more doing it. Getting caught using an IV results in a 2-year suspension. The rule is strict, and USADA enforces it hard.
You want to try recovering with the good stuff?
What do you mean?
I got a little something for dehydration, a little something for fatigue, and that beauty there is the best at boosting recovery. Way stronger than that water you're guzzling.
Well, I am pretty exhausted and dehydrated.
Perfect. Why don't you step into my tent? Before you took my product, you should contact USADA's drug reference line. Learn about prohibited IVs and volume thresholds to avoid chaos, like me.
Diuretics. Want to shed water weight fast? Well, diuretics will do it. But they're also on USADA's banned substance list, and getting caught using them ends your career real quick. Diuretics are drugs that make you urinate more, flushing water out of your body rapidly. Fighters can use them to cut those final pounds before weigh-ins. Pop a pill, lose 5 pounds of water in a day. Sounds perfect, right? Except it's incredibly dangerous and completely illegal. USADA bans diuretics for 2 reasons. First, they're a masking agent. You can use diuretics to flush out performance-enhancing drugs. Second, they are dangerous. Diuretics mess with your electrolyte balance. Fighters who get caught with diuretics in their system face automatic suspension. It's treated as a serious doping violation. Some fighters have been suspended for more than 2 years for just having a diuretic metabolite show up in a test. Performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, this is a pretty obvious one. Some of the biggest names have been caught, suspended, and had their legacies tarnished because of PEDs. PEDs include anabolic steroids, testosterone, EPO, growth hormones, and dozens of other banned substances. All of them give fighters an unfair advantage. Since USADA started testing UFC fighters in 2015, the list of busted fighters is long. John Jones tested positive multiple times for different substances.
He's the best to ever fight in a fucking fight, period. Like ever.
Anderson Silva got popped for steroids. TJ Dillashaw admitted to using EPOs.
I messed up. I'm having a hard time trying to forgive myself for this.
And the list goes on. USADA tests fighters year-round, not just around fight time. If you're under the contract with the UFC, you can be tested anytime, anywhere. And if you refuse a test, it's treated the same as a positive result. First-time offenders typically get a 2-year suspension. Your reputation takes a huge hit. The banned substance list is massive, and even smaller supplements can contain banned substances. PEDs are banned because they give an unfair advantage, and they undermine everything combat sports is about.